from phoneme or speech. According to Derrida, Western metaphysics and linguistics elevate speech as superior to writing because the act of speech is implicated within meaning-making that refers to an unchanging, sentient presence in logocentric phonologism. Derrida refuses to apply only one name to his concepts and deconstructs logos imbued in the metaphysics of presence. Dance scholar André Lefebvre has applied Derrida's grammatology to dance in a European context in his analysis of Coué notation and the advent of choreography. Building on his work, I would like to consider the effect of reading Derrida's grammatology in a non-Western context, namely that of South Asian dance. In this category, I include various margi or devotional and desi or secular dance forms found in Indian classical and folk dance traditions. Having their origins traced to the Indian performing arts treatise, the Natya Shastra, written in the 2nd century BC, these dance forms, namely Odissi, Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Chau, Manipuri, etc., were reconstructed in the 20th century in post-independent India. Of particular interest to me is the Karana, a foundational category mentioned in the Natya Shastra and is integral to all forms of dance. South Asian dance scholar Padma Subramaniam reconstructed 108 Karanas from historical texts, commentaries, sculptures, inscriptions, as well as her own subjective experiences of corporealizing the Karana. So Karana is a foundational category and is a fluid combination of Nritta Hasta or hand gestures. It can be single-handed gestures or double-handed gestures. Sthana or fixed postures where you're using just like one aspect of your body or just the neck or a particular gesture, and also chari, which is the continuous transformation of movement. So which is like the neck movement or the eye movement or hands gesturing. Angahara, on the other hand, is the sequence of the karana and is in motion and in continuous transformation. So in my analysis, I want to find equivalency between Derridian logos and my karana and Derridian phoneme and my angahara. So I investigate the Derridian claim to salvage gesture from the repression of logocentric phonologism through the performativity of the South Asian dancing body. I draw the equivalency between karana that inscribes the dancing body and Derrida's logos or writing. I use angahara as a parallel to his phoneme. Karana and angahara never fully perceive presence. I argue that the South Asian dance resolves the tension between dance and writing by resolving the tension between phoneme and logos in the corporeality of the dancer. The Karana constitutes the foundation as well as the pinnacle for the structure of South Asian artistry. In Writing and Difference, Derrida revisits Freud and rereads Freudian words, quote, "Speech must be understood not merely to mean the expression of thought in words, but to include the speech of gesture," end quote. The gesture in the Karana is equivalent to writing for Derrida. Engaged in a Freudian retelling of linguistics in his Grammatology, Derrida claims language is born from gestural non-language, denouncing the metaphysical assumption of an assured presence. There is both linguistic and non-linguistic inscription of the Karana. There is linguistic Natyashastri vocabulary. Karana is mentioned in subsequent commentaries, and finally its linguistic reconstruction by Subramaniam. Additionally, its non-linguistic inscription in the form of sculptures in numerous temples of India and Indonesia, and its embodied corporeal inscription in the South Asian dancer's body establishes the equivalency between Karana and a sort of multivariate writing. So, Karana thus becomes Derridian writing, quote, "Presence in general is not primal but rather reconstituted, that it is not the absolute wholly living form which constitutes experience, that there is no purity of the living present. Dance scholar Andrew Lepecki recognizes the co-possibility of dancing and writing. In his analysis of Derridian grammatology, he mentions, quote, "It is movement, the motion of deferment, the tracing of the trace, the writing under erasure, the slipping of the tracing, that quietly reintroduces presence in grammatology." End quote. The inscription of the South Asian dancer's body by the reconstructed Karana involves a complex relationality between mimesis, codified signification, choreographed use of repetitive movement, improvised subjective elaboration, and an imaginary space. The relation between dance and writing is resolved in dance as writing in Karana that embodies the differential space, articulating, quote, "the becoming space of time and the becoming time of space," end quote. The intertwining of the written trace of the Natyashastri vocabulary and its subsequent iterative reconstruction problematizes its reification in language alone. By complicating conventional boundaries of dance and writing, the Karana generates a constant movement between embodied and written inscription. The contributions by South Asian dance studies in the area of performative reimagination of the body is powerfully illustrated by performance studies scholar Anurima Banerjee when she analyzes the work of avant-garde Indian choreographer Chandralekha. Chandralekha used different genres of dance styles for her work, mainly motivated against patriarchal underpinnings of South Asian aesthetics. Banerjee theorizes Chandralekha's repertoire as a paratopia, that is, a space of alterity. Its inability to be essentialized in the fully present makes it an exemplar of Banerjee's notion of an altered space. Karana is oriented towards a flow of signification that obtains its substance concurrently from its reconstruction of historically codified expression as well as from contemporary praxis. In the Karana, there is ambiguity in gestural use of angas, major limbs such as head, chest, waist, sides, hands, and feet, and upangas or minor limbs such as thighs, shanks, ankles, toes, soles, neck, elbows, knees, toes, and heels. The slippery nature of each gesture in the written vocabulary reiterates Derrida's difference, meaning to differ and defer simultaneously. Derrida develops the concept of difference to argue with phenomenologist Edwin Husserl to emphasize the role of memory and perception in understanding sequentiality in language. Using difference, Derrida claims that the perceiver's intelligibility is in flux and differs from one reading to the next, hence alluding to the indispensable role of writing in manual or psychic inscription that presupposes an always already absent present. The Karana elides full presence and is incapable of full representation in codified language or description. It changes its form and structure due to its fleeting deferral from itself. It resonates with Lepecki's understanding of Derridian trace. Quote, "It is not only the object, the dance, that is in motion. The writer, the viewer, the spectator is never fixed as well." End quote. Through its transforming materiality, the Karana inscribes the discourse of South Asian aesthetics. It deconstructs its inscribed vocabulary. What is the gestural non-language that inscribes difference in the performing body? I argue that the Karana forms a soma or a sentient body metaphor that merges presence and absence. Apparently, Karana is able to deconstruct the signification by supplementing Derridian grammy, the trace, due to differential breaching of the human psychological apparatus. Yet, in order to generate a powerful disturbance in the field of signification, it is important to analyze the reversal of logos in the dancing body. It is in this specific sense of navigating between traditional and performative types of inscription that I contemplate soma to supplement dance writing. It works either in the form of modifying vocabulary or in the choreographic analysis regarding its efficacy, performativity, and rationale. Katichinnam, the most frequently used karana, is integral to all angaharas or groupings of karanas. Repeating again and again the alternate movements of the chinna or the waist and the pallava or the arms near the head is called Katichinnam Karanam. In the different temples of India, namely Tanjavur, Kumbakonam, Chidambaram, there are different sculptures of Katichinnam. The movements of the hands, the head and the waist, they are different in all these different temples. At times they are like this, they are here. So they have also different connotations. So its materiality is in a motion. It's a constant transformation. So, however, when repeated by different dancers from different time periods as well as training styles, this karana gains new life with its successive iterations. It inscribes itself within the body and is performative of its continuous transformation. It does not consider its potential decrypted by linguistic writing. Its agency lies in its self-erasure. Through its practical reconstruction from static sculptures, the karana governs the production of archival meaning through its corporeal interactions. It is brought to reality through the process of deferring meaning endlessly, since each repetition of the movement produces a different psychic and gestic impression. Appearing in all the angaharas or the sequences of karanas with varying meanings, this particular karana, Katichinnam, depicts rigorous gestic explorations, rupturing binaries such as symmetry, asymmetry, masculinity, femininity, construction, imagination. It extends Derridean project of deconstructing the metaphysical assumption of reality, presence, perception, and its trace left in memory due to differential breaching. Derridean understanding of Freud's mystic writing pad is a model of, quote, writing of the way in which one can only ever experience the world, as it were, after the fact, that is, through the traces of previous experiences and through the signifiers which are in effect the condition of being, end quote. Each gesture has multiple interpretations where meaning is not just contextual. There are infinite possibilities of meaning in the karana where it stands for as well replaces any particular meaning at a given moment. South Asian embodied artistry is thus an amplified version of difference that extends Derridean reconstruction through the soma. Since it has coexisting meanings that are all intended at a given spatial or temporal moment, Katichinnam replicates the phenomenon of the writing process through an embodied inscription that reaches the metaphysical assurance in writing through, quote, a new kind of question about metaphor, writing, and spacing in general, end quote. South Asian studies scholar Philip B. Zerilli believes, quote, in each doing of the act and actions which constitute the art exists the potential for effecting fundamental alteration, end quote. His assumption of the act existing in its fullness in future through multiplicity of corporeal impressions is problematic. According to Derrida, the possibility of a complete realization of an act of doing is an impossible desire predicated upon a prior assumption of being as unchanging. The assumption of a static being obscures the fact that performative inscription alters the nature of the act itself. While reading Levinas's corporeal metaphor for thought, Derrida concludes, body, quote, that is also exteriority, locality in the fully spatial, literally spatial, meaning of the word, a 0 point, the origin of space, certainly, but an origin which has no meaning before the of, an origin inseparable from genitivity and from the space it engenders and orients, an inscribed origin, end quote. Gesture in the karana is ungraspable and in Banerjee's words, quote, radically speaks to presence across time, end quote. The gestic trace has an ontological existence that leaves inscribed traces in materiality as well as in the supple movement of the torso, the expression of the eyes, the intricate hand gestures, and the sound of footwork. I believe soma is the Freudian differential space that Derrida refers to as intermediary between transparence and opacity of meaning. While expressed in the currency of soma, gesture becomes an activity of difference. I examine the claim of bringing gesture to the forefront of the philosophical process of making meaning. Regardless of the combination of angas and upangas, that is major and minor limbs respectively, I claim the process of combining and spacing of gestures creates the self-erasure of dance. In exhausting dance, Lepke combines Heidegger's ontological exercise with Derrida's grammatology, but does not explain the materiality of the affective gesturing in the gesture. Gesturing, as explored in the Karana, complicates Lepke's claim of choreography's relation to writing in South Asian dance forms. It is impossible to enlist exhaustively gesture or gesturing. The gesturing through inscriptions on the dancing body is prior to the differential breaching of memory and its subsequent spacing in writing. I claim soma to be Derrida's originary metaphor that is to be reflected upon as the process of meaning before being considered as a game of signification. The viscosity of gestural metaphor permeates through one's psychic process into other bodies and exists as tangible materiality. The spatial choreography is a form of kinesthetic bodily memory that replaces Grammy from its originary status. I believe the affective turn of knowledge overturns the deconstructive turn as trace tilts from Grammy to soma. Soma becomes the originary metaphor that breaches the dichotomy of body and mind, salvaging being from non-being. I attribute this paper towards the legitimacy of an affective South Asian dancing body in generating knowledge, meaning, and significance through embodied historiography, ephemerality, and staged disappearance. The South Asian dancer thus resolves the distinction between Derridian logos and phoneme through Karana and Angahara, respectively, in soma. Dance conjectures soma as a shifting epistemology of Derridian trace. Lepke combines the gesture in his analysis of dance writing. The choreographic analysis of the Karana unleashes an unending critique of presence as, quote, traces of traces of traces in an endless play of difference, end quote. Derrida de-establishes logos in writing through the differential trace or the breaching of psychic and material inscription in writing. Lepke extends the Derridian analysis such that the dancer's body can then occupy writing. Karana is the static sculpture that derives its meaning only through its multiple possibilities and through its unending capacity of transformation. A Derridian reading of the Karana would have entitled to be his definition of logos, which is always already absent in its presence. The Angahara, or the sculpture in motion, is similar to Derridian phoneme, that is unable to situate itself in logocentric phonologism, since the ephemerality of the dance is such that we can no longer assume absence or presence as fixed and unchanging. What is the stake of losing gesture? Gesture is Derrida's trace, quote, mark of the absence of a presence and always already absent present of the originary lack that seems to be the condition of heart